The blanket was already in the trash when I walked into that kitchen, folded over a coffee filter and an empty egg carton, like it was nothing. Like 31 years of my life was nothing. I knew that blanket by its corner. The little uneven stitch, where I dropped a row the winter my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I knitted it beside my husband's hospital bed, one loop at a time, while the machines counted down the last of him. And there it sat, in the garbage, on Christmas. What my daughter-in-law didn't know, what nobody in that house knew, was that there was something sewn inside it. Something my Bob put there before he died. Something he made me promise I wouldn't look at until the day they made me feel small. Well, that day had come. Welcome back to my channel, where I tell you the true stories of what family does to us when they think we've stopped paying attention, and what we do when we finally decide we're done being invisible. I'm an old woman now, and I've learned that the quietest person in the room is usually the one holding the whole truth in her hands. Stay with me until the end, and let me know what you would have done. Let me back up because you need to understand why a worn-out blanket mattered more than anything money could ever buy. My name is Margaret, Maggie, to the people who used to love me. I'm 59 years old, and I spent 32 of those years building something. I'm a researcher, medical imaging, teaching machines to see the things doctors miss. I tell you that now because for most of the story, my own family had decided I was, in my son's words, obsolete. My husband Bob never thought so. 37 years we were married. He used to bring me coffee at 2 in the morning while I worked, lean in the doorframe and say, "You're the smartest person in any building you walk into, Maggie. Don't you ever forget it." Bob got sick the autumn the leaves turned. Pancreatic. By the time they found it, there was nothing to do but make him comfortable. 3 months, they said. We got a little less. In those last weeks, he asked me to knit. Said he liked the sound of the needles. So I sat by his bed, and I made that blanket, and one evening he handed me a sealed envelope and a small key, and he asked me to sew them both into the lining. "Don't open it," he said. "Not until the day they make you feel small. You'll know when." I thought he was rambling. The medicine did that. So I sewed it in to humor a dying man. Then he was gone, the blanket went on his chair, and I didn't touch that seam for 4 years. Here's the first thing I need you to sit with. What kind of man, dying, hides a letter inside a blanket and tells his wife to wait? What did Bob know was coming that I couldn't see yet? Hold on to that. Because it took me 4 years and a garbage can to find out. After Bob died, my son Ethan changed. Slowly. The way milk turns, you don't notice until it's already gone sour. Ethan was a vice president at the company I'd helped build from nothing. And one by one, the meetings stopped including me. Just operational things, Mom. The emails stopped copying me. At a board presentation, my research, 15 years of it, he stood up in front of everyone and talked about needing fresh perspectives. Younger talent. He was 33. I was 58. Apparently, that math made me furniture. Then the family started doing what the company did. Thanksgiving came and went, and I found out I'd missed it from a photo online. 20 people around a table. I wasn't one of them. My granddaughter's birthday, I sent a card, I got a voicemail. The only one who never let go of me was Lily, my granddaughter. She was little 6, then 7, then 8. And she started mailing me drawings. Crayon pictures. Me and her holding hands. A house. A son with a smile. No return address. Because, and this is the part that still breaks me, at 8 years old, she already understood that loving her grandmother was something she had to do in secret. 23 drawings I had, taped to my refrigerator. 23 little reminders that I hadn't been completely erased. Not yet. So when Ethan finally invited me to his house that Christmas, the first time in over a year, I went. God help me, I went because Lily would be there. And that is the afternoon I walked into a beautiful, cold kitchen and saw my Bob's blanket folded up in the trash. My daughter-in-law, Ashley, breezed past with an armful of new throw pillows. "Oh, that old thing? It was just so worn out, Margaret. I'm doing a whole new palette this year." A whole new palette. That's what my husband's last gift had become. A clash with the drapes. Now let me ask you something, and I mean it. Go ahead and tell me down in the comments. Would you have pulled that blanket out of the trash, or walked away with your chin up and let them have their perfect party? I'll tell you what I did. I reached in, and I lifted it out, and I folded it over my arm like it was a sleeping child, and I said, "I'll take it home then." Quiet. No scene. The strongest thing you can do in a room like that is refuse to give them a show. But my hand felt it as I folded. A stiffness in the hem. After all those years, I'd nearly forgotten. The seam. The envelope. The key. I drove home through the snow with that blanket on the seat beside me like a passenger. And here's the thing that gnawed at me the whole way. My son stood in that kitchen and watched his wife throw away his own father's blanket, and he said nothing. Not one word. Was Ethan a coward in that moment? Or was he just a confused man who'd gotten so used to looking away from me that he didn't even see what was right in front of him? I've gone back and forth on that one for a long time. Tell me what you think. That night I sat at my kitchen table, and I took my sewing scissors and I opened the seam Bob had asked me to close. Inside was his letter. And a small key to a safe deposit box I never knew he had. If you've ever made something with your own two hands and watched somebody treat it like it was worthless, then you already know my hands were shaking before I even unfolded that paper. I'm going to tell you what the letter said, but not yet, because what that key opened changed everything first. The box held Bob's old notebooks and a small account he'd quietly set aside in my name for when you need to stand on your own. But it was the notebooks that stopped my heart. Tucked in the back was a flash drive, and on it, the half-finished work I'd abandoned in my grief. A way to catch the very cancer that took him before it ever shows a single symptom. Bob hadn't just left me a letter. He'd left me a reason to get back up. So I finished it, at my own kitchen table, at 2 a.m, the way he used to find me. And when it actually worked, I did one thing before I told a living soul. An old friend, Carol, looked me dead in the eye and said, "Maggie, protect it first. File the patent. Then talk to your family." In that order. So I did. Quietly. A lawyer named Mark. My name, my date, locked in tight. And thank the Lord I did. Because the moment my son caught the scent of something valuable, he was interested in his mother again. All of a sudden it was, "Come consult for us, Mom. Let's build something together." Mother and son. And I wanted to believe it so badly it hurt. I sat in his meetings. I explained my frameworks. I kept the real heart of it to myself, but a clever man can fill in the gaps when you've handed him all the edges. A few months later, a stranger telephoned me. A man named Tom, an investor with a conscience, and he said, "Mrs. Bennett, your son has been pitching your work to 5 different firms as his own invention. I have the slides. I thought a mother ought to know." And he sent them. 23 slides. My life's work. The company logo on every page. My son's name where mine should have been. He even tried to file his own patent for it. It was rejected, because mine came first. The work was mine legally, completely, and he built a whole tower of lies on top of it without ever once checking the foundation. I could have screamed. I could have called him and burned it all down right there on the phone. But I'd learned something from raising that boy and burying his father. The loudest reaction is almost never the strongest one. So I was quiet, and I was thorough. I started my own company. I called it Clarity, with 2 old colleagues who'd never stopped believing me. And I let one journalist, a careful woman named Rachel, look at everything. Every document. Every date. The whole quiet, undeniable truth. Then I picked my moment. 3 days before Christmas, Ethan called me one last time. "This year's really more of a networking event, Mom. High-value clients. You'd probably be more comfortable at home. The second Christmas in a row I'd be spending alone." "I see," I said. 2 words. That's all. Then I told Rachel. Midnight on Christmas. The very same hour his perfect party would be in full swing. At 12:01 in the morning, while he was raising a glass in a room that had no chair for me, the story went live. The truth, in black and white, for the whole country to read. No screaming. No revenge. Just the facts I'd protected, finally standing up on their own 2 feet. By morning it was everywhere. By the time the markets opened, it was over for him. I won't pretend it was all clean. Good people lost their jobs in that fallout, folks who'd done nothing wrong. One young researcher wrote to me, terrified, a baby on the way, a mortgage, a wife on bed rest. And I need you to know I didn't just read that and move on. I hired him myself. The first week Clarity opened its doors. Because justice that doesn't care who it crushes isn't justice at all. It's just noise. And I was raised better than that. My son didn't fight me. That surprised me most of all. He stood up in front of the cameras and he told the truth, that he'd stolen from his own mother. And then he said the thing underneath it, the thing I believe he'd been choking on his whole life. That he was tired of being Maggie Bennett's son. That just once he'd wanted to be the smart one. And he'd convinced himself the way to do that was to take what was mine and call it his. I sat alone at my kitchen table and listened to my boy confess, and I felt my heart break and mend in the very same minute. And then, finally, I read the letter. Bob's handwriting. Shaky at the end, but his.
Maggie.
If you're reading this, then somebody has tried to make you feel small, and I'm not there to stand between you and them. So let me stand here, on this paper, for as long as you need me. You were never the woman behind anything. You were the reason. Don't let grief make you forget what I knew the very first day I met you. You are the smartest, strongest soul in any room you will ever walk into. Protect your work. Protect your name. And know that I loved you in this life longer and better than I ever knew how to say. I'll be up in the stars, watching you win.
Bob.
I must have read it 100 times. My husband, for years in the ground, reached up out of that blanket and put his hand on my back at the exact moment I needed it most. That was the secret sewn inside. Not money, not evidence.
Faith.
A man who knew his wife so well that he protected her dignity from beyond the grave and somehow timed it for the precise winter I'd need it. A year has passed now. Clarity is thriving. Our work is in real hospitals catching the thing that took my Bob, giving other families the months we never got. I dedicated our very first lab to him. And on the wall of our lobby, framed and lit, are 23 crayon drawings from a little girl who never gave up on her grandmother. One of them, a stick figure of me with a big red heart, says, "Grandma fixing hearts." That one is the emblem of the whole company now. Lily has her own email these days. Her very first message to me said, "Now, we don't have to hide anymore." We don't. Before I go, let me ask you the question I most want to hear about. What's the handmade gift you still treasure today? The thing somebody made with their own 2 hands that money could never replace?
Tell me.
I read every single one. As for Ashley, my daughter-in-law, the one who put that blanket in the trash, she left my son not long after. And last month a package arrived on my doorstep. Inside was a shoebox holding every drawing Lily had ever made in secret. Ashley had saved them. The whole time. And tucked on top was a single knitted square.
Crooked.
Dropped stitches. Clearly her very first try, and not a very good one. There was no note. Just a square of yarn from a woman learning, too late, what it means to make something with your own hands for someone you should have loved better. I didn't call her. I'm not ready for that. But I kept the square. I keep it right next to Bob's blanket. It was too late to be forgiveness. But it might, just might, have been the beginning. I'll let you decide.